So the first thing we're going to go through when we go through our agency insights will be a topic on research, meeting brands where they're at, building trust, and avoiding red flags, and then how to just be seamless and upsell. And then, like Peter said, we'll have our Q&A. But first, I'm going to kick it over to Jordan, and we can go through like intros.
All right, perfect. Thanks, John. So I guess for those of you who don't know me, I've been working with Sam for the last probably 6 years now, kind of like helping him out on the business and brand side of things. We started out probably back in 2016 when Sam only had maybe like 150K followers, and I've kind of been on this journey with him ever since, as he was kind of like traveling and then growing his like brand, and then this kind of turned into more of a full-time job. And like now we're able to work with some amazing brands and tourism boards. And over the last few years, like there's been a lot of bigger like deals. But I guess one thing that I want everybody to know is that a lot of what we're going to be sharing doesn't just work for people with a large following. Like I've also used these same like techniques to land deals for other travel filmmakers, and then jobs for myself as well. So kind of everything that we're going to be sharing can be used no matter what like stage you're at, if like you have a following or if you're just starting out. And that's pretty much it.
Cool. So I met Jordan, I think like 4 or 5 years ago, working at an ad agency. I reached out to Jordan to work with Sam for, I think, a Visit Montana partnership, or maybe like Yamaha or something. But that's how I met Jordan and kind of got involved with the KC team. And I just stayed in contact. Recently started helping out a little bit more. So a little bit about me. I'm currently the social lead at Google and YouTube television. Like that's kind of my focus. So heading up social efforts for just pretty much everything on YouTube TV, mostly. I have about 7 years agency experience, kind of leading accounts like Visit Montana, Yamaha, Visit Wisconsin. I worked with like Airbnb, Netflix, Honda, Whole Foods, a bunch of different accounts like Universal and Hyatt. I spent 2 years after that at Instagram, out in California at the HQ, working with like brands like Marvel, Starbucks, REI, John Lewis, like Woolworths, stuff like that, doing a lot of like creative testing and ad testing. And then spent some time as a business development manager and content strategy manager for a lot of like big creators and things like that. I also enjoy camping. I always like to talk a little bit about myself. So I like camping and I have a dog, but I'm really happy to talk to you all today. All right, let's get into it. So the first section is about research. So kind of, again, coming from the background of like, how agencies work and how you can plug in to work best with an agency as a filmmaker, and kind of what we're looking for, or how you can make our lives easier so we have a better chance of working together. So this section is on research. So really the big thing I want to convey here, and Jordan and I are going to like tag team it and kind of color commentary, but brands publish these annual plans. And the big theme here is like do some research if you want to reach out. And when you do that, you could really stand out. So you can add value that way. So for example, a lot of tourism bureaus around the world, because they're government entities, they publish these big like annual plans. Actually, a lot of companies, like corporate companies, not just tourism bureaus, do this as well to their investors for investor meetings. And it would be really impressive if you said like, hey, I saw that you just published your 2024 like annual plan, your marketing strategy. And I actually found that, you're centering your plan around ski enthusiasts. I'm a filmmaker. I actually ski. I love the topic. I do a lot of ski content, and I have a bunch of skiers that we could work with. Here's my work. Guarantee that would get you a job. Like really, really high chances of that. I want to show you an example of kind of like an annual plan on the next slide, but Jordan, I'm also opening it up if you want to add any thoughts too. Otherwise, we can
Yeah,
jump.
definitely. Yeah. So I guess I like another thing too is that this works on a smaller level where like you don't have to be searching out these like massive plans that are on a like government site or something. Like if you spend the time to get to know a brand before you're like reaching out, it'll help because you'll be able to find ways to position your services to like benefit them, and it'll boost your like chances of actually getting the job. So like spending the time on the brand's socials and website, like getting to know their like mission, what they stand for. Maybe you check out their like Instagram and you find that they're not really posting reels or something, and they're just more like photos, or they're not like using their video assets on like other social channels too. Like just spending that time, like even just 30 minutes before you like reach out, will definitely help you stand out from all the other filmmakers who are just like pitching and asking for a job and like sending over their like deal or something. So I think just like having that as the mindset is that when you're pitching a brand, like the more work you do up front, uh, it's like the smarter you are going to seem, and the you're going to basically position yourself as somebody who wants to partner with like the brand and work with them for the long term.
And I think, it could be really useful to identify like a problem that the brand is dealing with. Like if you kind
Yeah.
of, for your research, you see a problem, that would be like really helpful. So I'm going to go into this next slide and kind of like show you an example of something that I've kind of seen or actually kind of like helped put together. So like this is an example of a marketing plan narrative. And it kind of has all these different things of like who their target audience is, like what they're looking for, research on why their target audience is going to the state, a little bit more information on like their strengths of the state, like a film promotion program. They like literally say like, this is my film promotion program for the year. Like that's super interesting. Challenges, like, hey, here's what we're struggling with. And then you could come in and say, hey, I noticed you have these challenges. Here's how I'm going to fix them. Kind of like moving into the campaign, past creative, and all of that information can oftentimes be available online. So that's pretty cool. They even have goals. So you can say like, here's how I'm going to help you achieve your goal. Objective. So just wanted to share that. Jordan, anything else? Otherwise, you can move on to the next topic. Oh, there's their budget too. Like that would help you with pricing.
Amazing. No, I think everything sounds good, John.
Amazing. And I also messed up. I realized that I didn't go around to ask a few questions of like what you might be looking to learn in this. So I think maybe like I'll take a step back and maybe we can ask like 3 or 5 people, like if they want to raise their hand, of what are you like looking to learn today in terms of agencies? Because we have a lot of content and I think that could be cool.
You guys are more than welcome to use the raise hand feature, or just unmute yourselves. Ricardo, go right ahead, man.
Hi, how are you? So I have a question. Basically, now for the past 4 months, I've recently launched a production company. And one of the things that I find is a struggle is building relationships with ad agencies as a production company, because obviously I could take in the job of doing the content for a brand, but sometimes it's easier to go through the middleman and develop the agency who has that sort of like stature and like trust factor to be like, yeah, we trust them to work. So I find it a little bit difficult to sort of bridge the gap and find those relationships and sort of like connect, for lack of a better word. So understanding how to go about that would be really useful.
Cool. Love it. I noted that.
Sweet.
Anyone else?
You guys are more than welcome to drop it in the chat section as well. Just thought I'd throw it out there. Oh, we got one from Chris. What are different types of deals that exist today between brands and creators? And what are some of the bigger picture plays that you guys foresee in the next 12 months? If you guys want to see that, that is in the chat section. Thank you, Chris.
That's a cool question. These are both really great
Yeah.
questions. Cool. Maybe we'll take like one more. Cool. What's the difference?
Alex, go right ahead.
Okay, I go. I have this one brand that I've been working with, and it seems like they're considering maybe taking me on as like a person to work with more frequently. And I'm just trying to figure out how will I like go about creating that relation to like become a more frequent partner, you could say, because it's freelance work. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I just noted all these. These are all really, really cool questions. So we'll keep them in mind as we're writing or kind of coming up with the rest of this discussion. And if there's anything that kind of triggers like, oh, that's related to that, I'll talk about it. Cool. So that said, like jumping into the section on like meeting brands where they're at. So we just talked about doing your research. Now it's kind of like, how can we like most accurately plug in and get to like contact these people? So let's jump into that. We wanted to kind of make this really actionable too. So thinking about like, what are some like very concrete steps that you can do to like do this and like increase your chances of working with an agency or a brand. This is another actionable thing. A lot of brands, agencies, brand managers, social managers, all these people that are potential decision makers for you to work together are on LinkedIn. There's a stat, it's like 80% of agency or brand decision makers are on LinkedIn and they're actively using it 2 times a week. I use it like almost every day, honestly, and a lot of my teammates do too. It's how we get jobs, it's how we network, like all the time. So that's a really powerful platform to potentially like find someone on and maybe stand out. So maybe why not build a profile and like send a message? Like for example, this guy Randy at Jeep, talk to him a lot. This person at like Royal Caribbean, like talk to them a lot. They're all publishing content. They want to be like thought leaders in their industry. That's a really big thing for a lot of these agencies and brand managers. So something to consider. Jordan, anything else that you want to add in?
Yeah, definitely. So LinkedIn is essentially the platform that I use to find the marketing team for any brand that I want to reach out to. And I use a tool called Apollo.io, which I can also put in the chat here for everybody to see. But it's a extension for Chrome, and you basically just go on any person's page on LinkedIn, and it'll give you their contact info to reach out to them. And it really saved a lot of time in like the whole process of finding like the right person to reach out to, because usually it's somebody in marketing or in socials. I found that if you try to like reach out to anybody on their press team, that they usually don't have budgets to pay filmmakers and stuff like that, and theirs is more getting like free press for the brand or something. So if you want to like reach out to somebody from a brand that has a budget, I would go to the marketing team or the social team. And Apollo.io just speeds up that whole process where you're not having to like guess the contact info of the right person you to reach out to. It basically just gives it to you, and then you can copy and paste it and send out your pitch there.
That's a really cool point, Jordan. Just like thinking about the structure of an agency, and like one of the questions was kind of like, what's the difference of an ad agency versus like a creative agency? And we can like touch on that. But like the way that an agency is structured, like they often have they call it earned media versus paid media. So like a social team or like a creative team that's like making television or commercials and stuff like that is the paid media team. Like there's a budget and they're buying network time, they're buying spots, they're buying things. Whereas the earned, like the PR team, the press team that Jordan mentioned, everything they just try to get for free. Like it's editorial, it's news. So yeah, you usually have like not as strong of a chance of working together in that respect for money.
Yeah.
Speaking of like outreach, kind of like moving into the second thing is like not just LinkedIn, but like Instagram is really cool. Like kind of like Nugget, a lot of social managers often like that are in charge of hiring creatives usually like check their brand social pages like daily. Like for me, for like YouTube TV, I'm checking it like Monday through Friday. I'm not checking it. Well, I don't check it on Saturday and Sunday. We have a triage team that does that, like a totally separate team, but I'm out on Friday, like after Friday. But a lot of brands don't have that. So like Monday through Friday is important. Usually like I do that first thing in the morning, and I know a lot of people that do that first thing in the morning to see if there's anything urgent. And then Monday is usually like that hot day to catch up on like checking when you're like looking at messages, anything from the weekend. And a lot of people agency side, because Monday is like super chaotic, log on Sunday night to like prep and just like do like 20 minutes of just like checking in on stuff. So Sunday could be a good time to send a message. You could think about sending like a 15-second reel of your work and then following up with like a text. I'm showing you an example. When they go through their messages, if you send your text and then your reel or like an image, it says like media message. But if you do the opposite, where you send an image or a video and then your text, they can see the first like few words, and that helps you stand out. Make your words count. So here's an example of me reaching out like a long time ago for a creator I worked with to Igloo, and it turned into like a partnership. So there's just an example. I did that on a Sunday night.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the timing of when you send your pitches definitely helps. Like if you're sending it at like night or on like the weekend or something, you could also just get lost in the brand's like inbox too, and it could be flooded. But if like you're sending your pitch first thing on a Monday morning or in the afternoon on like a Tuesday when maybe their like first few hours of work is done and now they're kind of like getting to like check everything, like check their like messages, that like just knowing the right times to be like sending over your pitches and everything. And just like what John's pitch was here, he wasn't trying to like, he wasn't sending over his full like pitch. He just basically briefly said a bit about him, a bit about the influencer that like he's like working with, and then a few brands that they've worked with before, just so that this brand knows that, hey, like this isn't their like first time. They've worked with some other really well-known clients too. And then just making it easy as like as easy as possible for them to get in touch with them with his like number, and then just asking for the next step, which is basically who should I reach out to about this like deal that we want to talk about.
Totally. Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you could approach it. And I just think like helping, like Jordan said, like a next step is really important to like providing your contact info or like, hey, can we talk on Friday or Monday, something like that. So moving on to the next one, like, so we looked at like LinkedIn, we looked at Instagram. Everything kind of still does fall under an umbrella of like research. Like it's a theme that it's a thread that carries across all of this content, but websites have a lot of information. So like, I'm going to answer the question about the agency versus creative. So like an ad agency can be anything. It can be like a digital ad agency for like websites. They can specialize in public relations. Like Edelman is a PR agency. Ogilvy is like a creative agency. They call them like a creative shop. But they also do social and PR. Agency is just the umbrella, like an ad agency. There are some that emphasize like creative. I come from a lot of agencies that are integrated, where they do TV, they do social, they do paid media, earned media, website, strategy, all of it. But some like literally just do creative. So you maybe look on their website and see like top 50 creative agencies. Like I think Sunny and 72 is one, or like Droga 5 and stuff like that. Some also just specialize in like certain categories. I was working with RSW and they just do like health food and like wellness and stuff with like Whole Foods and things like that. There's another one that I was working with like LA Associates where they only do entertainment, like they work with like Universal and stuff like that. Basically, like big thing to take away from this slide is brands have sometimes they have an agency of record. And that means that an agency of record is like their go-to for everything. So like an example is like, we were Yamaha's agency of record. We do everything. Montana's agency of record. We do everything. Other times brands kind of sometimes parse out their different specialties. Like they have a paid media agency and a creative shop, and they have a public relations agency. So do some research on that. Like you could type in like Canon agency of record, Nikon agency of record, whatever. Do your research, and sometimes those agencies have their contact info online. And maybe it's like info@ogilvy.com. And then you see, maybe somewhere else like J Witt for Jeremy Witt at Ogilvy. And then you know that your other contact is something totally like a different person, but you can apply the same name convention to that. Now you just figured out their email. Think about that. Other times you can look online, maybe look at like Adweek is a really big publication, or the Cannes Film Festival. Maybe they do awards, the Shorty Awards. Look up awards for the brand, and 9 out of 10 times those awards list the roster of all the people that worked on it. So you could see art director, video director, photo retoucher, all these people, creative director. And that would be a good way to get names.
Yeah, definitely. And then John, if a filmmaker reaches out to an agency, is it more like they get put on a roster, and then when a job comes up with one of their clients, then you'll be on their like roster, right?
That's a good one. Yeah. A lot of agency like work is kind of like based on relationships. Like I know a lot of creative directors that their job is to just kind of like manage getting the right people and having the right people on hand, and getting the right freelancers and contractors for the right role. Like for the lottery, we had like a very specific team. And then for Yamaha, we had a very specific team of people that specialized in outdoor. But they're relationship based. Like you get to know these people, and they keep you on file. That's a really good point, Jordan.
Yeah. So maybe not the best move if you have some sort of trip or something, or you want to close a deal quicker. It's more like you're going to be put on their roster. Make sure that you're keeping in touch with them. Make sure that they have access to like your best work, your website, socials, and everything. And if you specialize in any certain like niche, make sure that they know that too, so that if a brand comes up that might be a perfect fit for you, like you are the first person that they like think of, rather than just kind of like going to their roster of filmmakers and everybody says they have like kind of like a similar style of work, and none of them really specialize in like any sort of niche or something. Just doing those like little things, I think, can really help you stand out.
Yeah. And I found a lot of agencies have a lot of, they don't have a lot of like production people like on staff, like a video, like someone who records the video, or like someone who's the actual like photographer. They outsource a lot of that, just because it's kind of like the way that like that doesn't always happen. It's not like a routine program. So like when it happens, we have to hire like specialists. So like having an ongoing relationship is really good, because then you could be the go-to for specific clients. Speaking of like getting to know people, a lot of marketers and a lot of agency people go to conferences that are sometimes free, sometimes like not super expensive. Like pretty much all marketing directors go to like pretty much all like tourism marketers go to state tourism conferences every year. If you want to work with like a packaged goods company, a lot of those people go to like their own conferences for their types of things. Went to a lot of conferences for like Visit Montana and Outer Banks and Wisconsin. the state like tourism conference, and it's really an opportunity for all the different like teams within the state, whether it's like a city or like a bunch of businesses or a chamber of commerce. They all get together with the state and they talk like research strategies. There's a lot of vendors like film companies, contractors that attend, and you can buy tickets. Like they're not expensive. They're published online. Like you can Google this. I just added some like Hawaii tourism conference, like California's Huntington Beach, like tourism summit for California, the Visit Montana one. There's a ton of them. I want to just kind of say, like, there was an example of a creator that he used to like travel around the country in his van, and he was like pretty well known, and he'd done a lot of work with this tourism company, this like big tourism company, and he just dropped in to these like tourism conventions. Not saying to do that, but people knew him already, and he would always like try to trade pizza for photo rights, which is kind of weird, but it worked, and he did, and he like often, you know, traded, and he wound up like getting down the line a lot of business from the state. And he got like a gig on HGTV Dream Home because like he knew us, who connected him to this effort we were doing. And like that was a good way because we knew him, we trusted him, we understood how he worked. Same thing with like it used to be like a tourism conference at Instagram every like June. Maybe you could say like, hey, I know that this is happening. You might be flying out to it. I live in New York. I'm, you know, maybe like we can chat or something like that when you're in town, or you know, something like that. Just think outside the box a little bit about like trying to connect with people.
Totally. I think it definitely helps when a brand is able to put a face to the name. So like imagine you're reaching out, you get in touch with them, you like jump on that like first call. Maybe you're hiking their posts on like Instagram or something. You're messaging them, you're keeping in touch, and then all of a sudden they meet you in person at one of these events. It's like you are always going to be top of mind when they have a job coming up in the future or something. And another big event is the NAB. That's basically a big event that all the tech brands go to. So like anybody who is selling like software, gear, like drones, lenses, like all that kind of stuff. All those bigger brands are like going there. And I know a few filmmakers who have gone to that event and like actually met the like marketing teams there that are behind these like massive brands that are otherwise difficult to get in touch with. So I think that's another like it's just another way of standing out too, where brands are getting all these pitches every single day. It's like being able to put a face to the name kind of makes it a bit more like personal and maybe less of a business transaction too.
It's a little bit of a risk too. Like, you know, it takes a lot of effort to make, you know, some of these connections and do these things. Like this is obviously like a super high lift tactic. We started out like low lift, like Instagram and LinkedIn, and we're kind of shifting. But there's maybe a strong potential for like a really good return on your investment here if you're like the official filmmaker of this brand or something like that. The next thing is like consider like even award shows. We were talking about that. Like if you live in a market where that's a thing, there's a lot of ad agency award shows in like pretty much like the big cities around the world. Think about that. Like I used to go to one in like New York, and a lot of those were like agency folks. You could think about that. I know another filmmaker that like he put a QR code like on the sidewalk of an agency, and then like this brand that he wanted to work with, and then it basically drew up to his portfolio, and then he ran like ads, targeted ads to anyone who visited that way. And it like it's kind of funny, but like thinking about like getting crafty and stuff like that, it's kind of interesting. Anything else, Jordan?
Yeah, I think that's just probably the best mindset to have when you're actually reaching out to brands and like pitching like clients, just knowing that there's tons of other people that are doing the same thing. So what are those key things that you could do to like stand out? Is it going to events? Is it spending more time to understand the brand so you can craft like a better offer and help them solve their pains because you spent the time like looking at their like Instagram website, and then you create a plan that is going to help them solve their like pains? Because if I think every brand knows that they need more videos, and they know that like Instagram Reels is going to help boost their like growth on social, and it's like a key feature that like Instagram is like pushing too. So just always like going in with that mindset is like being like crafty. How can I stand out, and how can I reach brands where they're at too?
And one of the questions like, how can I bridge the gap and like relationships of like the agency versus the brand? It's like sometimes a blocker. That's a really good way to bridge that gap. Like oftentimes the agency gets really protective of you reaching out to a brand. Like I don't love that when people reach out, because like we have our own creative team, like we have our own plans, things, and it's like very methodical. So like the agency is absolutely like the blocker in the middle. I totally get that. So like doing these things and like going to a conference is a really good way to get to know someone, and then like that kind of helps you skirt around the blocker. Oftentimes though, the agency is the one that's tasked with executing, and like they have the budget, like the brand gives the agency the budget to figure out what they want to do. So it might be more worthwhile to sometimes focus on the brand, depending on how big it is. It's never black and white. The next section, so we have 3 more sections to go through, is about building trust and brand recall. I think that this is a really good segue into that. Jordan said like a lot of people are pitching and reaching out to brands, and how can you stand out? I do think that agencies and brands are really approached by sometimes like hundreds of creators a month, depending on the scale of the company. But constantly getting pitch decks. How can you stand out? Thinking about like using digital for your advantage, like social. You can comment on brands, like posts. You can follow them, subtly sell like with a, hey, like I love this, I'd love to film in your state, or I don't want it to be too tourism focused. Like you could think about other applications for other companies. When the time comes, they'll remember you. And there's like 4 things that I kind of want to like bring across here. Figure out less saturated ways to get on their radar. So like if a brand is like killing it on TikTok or on Instagram, and they still have a Facebook, or they have a Twitter or Reddit or YouTube or whatever, and they only have like thousands of followers or hundreds, hit them up there, because it's probably the same social manager or the same like creative manager. But it's easier to like stand out. Try to get good publicity. Like I would often find filmmakers to work with through reading Communication Arts, Ads of the World, Business Insider, like news coverage of something cool. And then I'd reach out that way. Because that makes me look good if I'm working with like people that have like a good background. Build repetition with the brand too. Like you can set up Google alerts or like Instagram alerts, like follow the page and get notifications. And when they post, then boom, like immediately, like you can be the first to comment, so it's more visible. Because a lot of times a social manager is looking at like the first few minutes to make sure everything is good. And then lastly, add value. It makes a difference if you're like, hey, I noticed that your agency is doing XYZ, like photo content, but I noticed that video content is doing like way better in the social space. Here's what I can do for you on the video front. And that actually happened. Like we hired someone that said that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and imagine if that filmmaker reached out to John on LinkedIn and just said, hey, I'm a travel filmmaker and I can create videos for your like Instagram. It wouldn't have the same effect. Whereas this one actually took the time to understand the brand and like how they will benefit from like using videos. Like that's something that I mentioned a lot in the business post, is that you're not selling your videos. You're basically selling what those videos offer for the brand, whether that's social growth, more in engagement, ads, driving sales, a like hero video to build the like brand awareness and stuff like that. Like just thinking of different ways to position your services specific for what that like brand needs. And usually you can kind of get like a good understanding of this just by looking at their socials and like the website, and just looking for those ways where you can help them with your like video services. And then I think another thing too is that there's so many people that are reaching out and wanting to work with massive brands like the Four Seasons or tourism boards, and like there's tons of people pitching them every single month, and some of them have massive followings. So what I usually do if I'm pitching for myself or like a smaller filmmaker is that I try fishing in a smaller pond where not everybody is looking. Like maybe I find a really cool villa in like a place that I want to travel to, and I reach out to them to help them out with like their videos, because I know they don't have like the massive budgets or like the massive team, but maybe I can come in and like fill that like need and be that team to help them create the videos for their socials and like editing and stuff like that. And it can start as just a small one-time thing that you do for like a couple free stays, but then eventually that can grow into like a longer term deal. If like staying at this one villa for 2 or 3 days, you captured all these videos, and then you reach back out to the owner saying something like, hey, like I captured all this amazing stuff. I think it would work well for your like Instagram, or like what if we did this on your like website or something. So just looking for ways that the brand is going to benefit from your like work. And then also like fishing in smaller ponds. Like you could totally go after the like whales of like the Four Seasons and the tourism boards, but also make sure that like a good percentage of like the brands that you're reaching out to are maybe at that like 1 or 2 levels down, because I think they're probably more likely to respond to your pitches and actually need your like services sooner.
And like one of the themes that I'm kind of hearing from Jordan is kind of like help to solve problems, and we've kind of talked a little bit about that. Like one of the questions is like, how can I increase the frequency at which I work with brands, solve problems, and like figure out like, hey, I worked with you this one time. Hey, I noticed like that, you like your team, you were a little slower. Like when I delivered like the final, like one of the files, you guys were a little slower to like go through this process, or like to cut it up into like social things. Or like another example, it's probably wrong, is like it took your team longer to like color grade it or something like that. Like, oh, I do that. Like, I know I just did like the kind of like the raw content or something like that, because you needed boots on the ground, and you have a production team, but like I can do color grading and I can do it in 24 hours, whatever, it is. Just examples, like bad examples, but think about how can you solve problems. And then like if you do a killer job, and you're fast and you are quality, and like you're there and a good strategic partner, not just a filmmaker, like thinking about their brand, that's a really good way to like unlock additional opportunities, increase your frequency. So just wanted to touch on that too. 2 more sections, so they're quicker. The next one is like avoiding red flags. One of the themes here is there's a lot of people reaching out sometimes to agencies, and sometimes like we kind of like weed people out for like any red flags. Like that would be the first thing I'd do, is I'd look at like their social presence and be like, is this person like a good person? Like, do they have any like negative publicity? Like, are they posting anything that's like ridiculous? Because corporate is very PR, like public relations, news conscious, very, very sensitive. So we will maybe develop a rubric of things that we're looking for. And it's not just red flags. There's other things like, how amazing is their work? What's their pricing potentially? Are they an expert in this category? Stuff like that. And like, here's an example of, a rubric that we had a rubric and it fed into this deck, but we have all these creators and we have like a little stats on them, like about them, what their rubric score is, and stuff like that based on all of these components. So like we have their rubric score here, rubric score again, etc. So just some things to think about, as you're pitching, like there's, things that people are looking for.
Yeah, definitely. And then just making it as easy as possible for a brand to find your like best work. Like if you're sending out a pitch and you're not linking to like your website or your press kit or like your Instagram or like your best worker, like anything, you are putting more work on the brand to try to find out if you're a good fit and if they want to be working with you. Like you want to be making it as easy as possible for them to see the benefits, links to like your past work and links to your past work that is in their space. Like if you're reaching out to a clothing brand, you want to make sure that the videos that you're sharing with them are from other clothing brands too, because it's kind of tricky. Some brands, like if you just send like a show reel of your best clips, like it could be like an amazing video, but they don't necessarily connect how that video is going to work for their like brand. Or so that's definitely something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like one of the things in the rubric score is like, are they a category expert of like what I'm doing? So like, for example, working with a specific like beverage company, like we would look for people that specialize in like beverage, like marketing and like creative, because there's some super nuanced things that a lot of people might not pick up on, like figuring out how to light the bottle correctly and making sure that it has we're avoiding reflections, and like there's tricks to that, like if you're doing studio shots and stuff like that. So we'd look for that, or like working with like Kohler, which is like a bath company, looking for people, and they're in a lot of hotels, like their bathware and stuff like that, like faucets and baths and stuff like that, looking for specific people that specialize in that and hotels, because there's very specific types of lighting and shots to make sure you're not getting reflections off the faucet and stuff like that. So like totally echoing that. I think that's a really good segue too into the last one, which is like be seamless. Like be seamless, and also like maybe upsell too, as part of being seamless. So sometimes like it's as easy as being like simple to work with, save them time. There's a few things here I want to call out. Answer quickly. Often, like I would be on a crazy deadline, like ridiculous. Like I'm managing like 5 different accounts, and I have like 10 hours a week for like one account, and 15 hours a week for another account, and 20 hours a week for another account, and like 10 hours for another account. And it's more than 40 hours. And we bill by 15-minute increments. A lot of agencies do that, like most. So we need to stay on budget and we can't mess around. So like responding quickly, like Jordan said, make your stuff visible, like pin a highlight reel first thing, pin it on social, email on your social when you're reaching out, have your kit, one pager with like key stats, like pricing, deliverables, name drop, like, hey, I worked with Ogilvy, I saw that in the chat. That would be my here are my rights, like a universal 1 year, etc., ready to go, so I don't have to go back and forth, and lead the engagement sometimes, like, hey, let's meet on Friday if that works for you. Here's a scheduler. Do your research, be ready, and like stay in touch. Like if you don't get the job this time, just be that squeaky wheel that gets the grease, because like if you stick around long enough, sometimes like I'll pick you just because like you're there and I need someone too, and I still really appreciate your content. It just didn't work out before, and like just stick around, like keep at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one question that I've seen a lot is that people are kind of scared to follow up because they don't want to be annoying or just like bug their like clients or something. So, but following up has been key for like us personally to closing tons of deals. Like there's been times where I'll follow up for months afterwards, and then eventually the timing is right and we can work on a deal. So just like John said, like always keeping in touch, following up, kind of leading the whole process. Like, don't just leave it on them to like get like back to you. Like, if it's been a couple of days and you haven't heard, like, just make sure that you're like getting in touch with like them, like over and over again. So when that job does happen, you are like the first person that they think of.
Yeah, Jordan's really good at like following up and adding value. Don't follow up, be like, hey, you still there? It's like, you up? Like like add value. Like if they don't respond to you, be like, hey, I noticed like you guys just posted this video, and I thought it would be really cool to do this because like this campaign is really neat, or this could be cool. Or like, hey, I'm just sharing this article with you because I know we were talking about like a color grading job, and like there's this new like technique that I'd love to try. Have you heard of it? Like that kind of stuff, like add value when you follow up. Um, cool. Awesome. I don't know if there's anything else, Jordan, that we wanted to add on that. Like, because I think like somebody like in the agency world told me like two things. Like the first one is like be nice to everyone because like you'll see them on the way up and the way down, like when things are good and when they're bad. But the thing that's really relevant here is follow up. That was the second thing someone told me, because like just because they don't respond doesn't mean they're not interested. They might have forgot about it. It might not have been priority. Like probably get like 70 emails a day. And like I probably like might just forget about something. Like it might have honestly just slipped my radar. And I appreciate it if you follow up because it's like, oh yeah, thanks. Like I wanted to talk. So just some things to think about.
Totally, yeah. I think all that goes into being seamless, but I guess it would be good to touch on how to upsell your services too.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Like, you're better at that than I am. Like, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's two ways that I usually do it. One is that after the first job is done, you basically have all this like footage, and you can go back to the client and be like, hey, like we shot all this other stuff, and then basically present them with maybe like a plan about how you can edit all these videos in different ways that's going to benefit them. Like maybe you were hired just for like one 45-second video, but you can create like two 15-second videos, like another 20. But maybe you captured photos from your like trip too, and basically try to upsell them like all these other services that are going to benefit like them, especially if you go on Instagram or something and you find that they're like lacking in like videos and stuff like that. So one is you can upsell after the like job is done. But another one that I've been doing a lot now is I basically take a brand through what's called a discovery call, which you just spend it's basically like a meeting where you're spending all of your time just asking the brand questions about what the brand stands for, their goals, how are they using videos, do they have a filmmaker on their team now, what is their like marketing plan, do they have any like launches coming up, and just kind of looking for ways to position your like services to basically take the brand from where they are now to where they want to be in the future. So maybe they want to say, like, maybe they say something like, we want to grow by 10,000 followers on Instagram within the next three months. So then you can be like, okay, like we can break that down. Like every month now you're getting like 1,000 followers. Like what can we do to 10x that over the next 3 months? And basically, rather than just saying like, hey, I'll create videos, like helping them with a plan that's like, all right, like we need to be posting 3 to 4 times a week. It's going to be Instagram reels. We're going to edit these reels for all of the other socials too. So like you're just basically like what John was saying, it's like taking your video services and like figuring out how you can solve your clients' needs with them, and like bringing it back to like finding a way to connect it to a benefit that the brand is going to have, rather than just selling a service.
Totally. And I think like I always like to also take an approach that's like very like incremental, like upsell things sometimes, like not just like on one job, but like oh, and I can do this like little thing too. You know, simple, and like the more you add like little things that you're helping a brand with, the next thing you know, you're like their agency.
Yeah,
um
yeah,
totally.
stacking them. Totally.
Yeah, definitely. And just like doing a good job is a really good way to upsell. Because like you build that credibility. Um, Amazing. I know that I think we have time for like a few questions, but I also there's one question that I didn't answer about what are some deals that exist today between like brands and creators? You know, and like where is that going? If I understood that correctly, I think like experiential, like a lot of like agency work is like shifting to experiential, like events in like real time, because a lot of people are, or a lot of brands are like shying away from the metaverse. And they're like, people want human interaction, especially like the research shows like Gen Z like really wants that. That's what agency people are saying. um I'm just the messenger. But like experiential, so like a way that think about how can you work with that, like do you take videos in like a market like that someone's at, like is Yamaha doing a cross country like tour in like 50 states, and like you're in one of their states, so you reach out like I want to be your filmmaker for this event, stuff like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
take
definitely.
a-
And then I think one of the questions was like, how do you turn a like one-off deal into a longer term relationship? And I think that kind of like goes back to what I just said in the last slide, is that where you're spending more time to like get to know the like person that you're going to be working with, getting to know the brand, and then like looking for ways that you can offer your services that are going to like help them reach their like goals, and just spending time to like not just being a filmmaker, but basically being a a partner in their like growth and journey too.
Totally, yeah, it's total echoing the partnership thing. um Peter, like if it's cool with you, I have time for like two questions, and then like I want to open it up to like if anyone wants to hit me up on like on LinkedIn or like Instagram, like it's just johnsta.graham, or like email. You could hit up Peter and I'll give you my email or whatever. Like happy to answer any like follow-up questions too. But maybe can we take like a few questions?
We could definitely do a couple. It seems as though Brandon is the first one here. Brandon, I would love to spotlight you, my friend, and you can go ahead,
Yeah.
ask the question. Thank you, John and Jordan, for that beautiful session, though. Carry on.
Yeah, it's Braden, and yeah,
Great.
thank you, John, Jordan, Peter, everybody, for super valuable. So I found it like incredibly relevant to me because I literally just worked with Ogilvy on a Coca-Cola campaign this week, and I'm looking to expand that relationship. And so I wrote my thoughts down here so I can like kind of get them across straight. But so like going back to that slide and just the whole presentation, essentially, are you saying that it's like, I'm sure it's valuable to build the relationship with like Ogilvy. Do you think it's like more realistic to try to just build that relationship with the contact I have there? Or should I try to like find the direct contact with like at Coke that I worked with for like this whole campaign, this activation? And then also up to add on to that too, on this campaign, and then I've done another one with Coke too. And basically like any brand deals that I try to do, I try to like make calls with the people, like act like, so a lot of it happens through email for me, but I'll often just try to make a call happen too, just so they kind of get that human element. And so I can like build more of that kind of like trust and just like more authenticity between me and them, so they can hear my voice. So I did that as well. But what I really want to do is try to build this relationship with Ogilvy or with Coke, or in future partnerships, brand deals. And so what do you suggest I do? I just finished the campaign literally yesterday is when everything went live. So the only thing I have left is to share like analytics after this.
Yeah, you could like follow up and ask them like how it went. You could ask them for like feedback, like honest feedback. That would be a good discussion. The way I would approach it, I'd probably like see if you can like follow them on social. Like if like you made a good connection, like if you're on a texting basis with them for the project, maybe like hit them up on like Instagram or LinkedIn, and then like stay in connection with them on LinkedIn, and then which is totally normal. Like LinkedIn is fair game. And then if you see them posting, like keep commenting on stuff, like not super often, but like comment, and then like find ways to like approach them, and then you can kind of keep like milking that relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think for a bigger brand like Coke, it's probably best to go through your contact that you have. Maybe for like a smaller brand, it might make sense to go straight to them. But I think if you were to reach out to Coke and their marketing team, they might filter you to their agency anyway, just because they're like a bigger brand, and that's probably more of what their process is there.
Yeah, they might get mad if you try to like bypass them for sure too. Like whoever hired you, like whoever you signed the scope with, maybe stick with them, but like still follow the other people like the brand manager.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's super valuable, because I did think about maybe trying to contact the people at Coke, but whenever you mentioned that the agency might get pissed off about that, I was like, oh, well, it's a good thing I never did that in the first place. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you, Braden. Sorry to butcher your name. John, are you good to squeeze in one more question? I know it is a little bit time sensitive, so we got Ricardo right here. We're gonna squeeze him in. Let's get one final one from Ricardo. Ricardo, you're on Spotlight. Go ahead.
How's it? Back again. So you said something in the presentation that kind of like got my brain ticking. Like I send a bunch of follow-ups to just basically try to, not follow-ups, but like also just like cold input and cold message to try and like generate some sort of connection in a meeting. I get this message, let's say about 25 to 35% of the time is we don't have the opportunity right now to collaborate. We'll put you on file. How do you pivot from that message going forward to like sort of build that relationship either down the line or straight away? Like what would be the suggestion to get from we put you on file to sort of like, okay, is it time now?
Yeah. There's two things I want to call out here. One is you're probably hitting them at the wrong time.
Right.
I want to call that out because like they might not have an opportunity now. Think about like a business usually has an annual plan. So like 100% of the time, one of these big companies, or maybe even like mid-size or whatever, if it's that type of company, they have a plan, and
Yeah.
the agency 100% has an annual plan.
Right.
You're probably working on it in like July, like probably August, because people want to enjoy their summer. And then like when summer winds down, they're probably like working on their plan for the next year. And that's when they're thinking about campaigns. You might have hit them like in January or February when they already like got their stuff and now they're in execution phase. But like totally like then you need to figure out how to pivot that. Just stay in contact. Be like, hey, I want to share my new reel, or like I want to share this, or like, hey, I found this thing. This is cool. I love you. Like, congrats on your award. Set up Google alerts for them. Stuff like that. Again, I'm just thinking like big brands. So maybe I'm wrong, but just some thoughts.
Yeah, I pitched the small to medium-sized business sort of aspect. The big fish is it's too much competition right now. I'd rather fish in smaller ponds, build that reputation, build that trust, because you don't know where they're going. Sure. Sort of vibes.
Cool. Yeah, just follow them on Instagram or whatever, and like comment on their stuff, or like weigh in. Like, oh, I really loved that thing that you guys did. Like that was really cool. Like, have you ever considered this? You know, stuff like that.
Be a super fan, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad to be here. Like, really like honored to like chat with like Jordan and like Peter and stuff. Like, this is an awesome team, and like this is a great group of people. So like, this is really cool. This is living.